Okay, I am about to tell you something that most horse people will not say. Most people in this industry are just never going to tell you this, but I'm going to. And that is that I think it's actually totally normal to be afraid of horses sometimes. I think that, um, we have this like sort of silly concept in this sport that you're never supposed to be afraid. And you're supposed to just like, even if you're scared, like show up anyway, trudge through it, work harder. Come here, buddy. I'll let you off. Um, but I actually think that that's gonna cause a lot more problems down the road. I think, um, kind of like how, you should have a healthy fear of the ocean, right? You shouldn't just like go swimming out there if you don't have the skills to get yourself back to shore. Same thing with our horses. I'm trying to very curious about what's going on over here. Same thing with our horses. You should have a little bit of a healthy fear of these things. They are large animals and they are afraid of silly things that are unpredictable and they are highly athletic and they can do a lot of things that could do a lot of damage. And I think it's a totally valid concern that, this is a high risk sport. That said, we need to have a barometer internally inside ourselves, and you are the only one that's going to know that what that barometer is. But you need to develop a barometer that can help you to understand if what you're afraid of is legitimate um something that's protecting you from danger, or if it's a fear that is irrational and is holding you back. And that is a really hard one to distinguish, but it's a really, really important one. So that's what I would like to talk about today. So I used to work with somebody who was convinced that her horse was going to be afraid of bikes, and she would trail ride a lot in the same place that people like to mountain bike. It was a really common, popular mountain biking trail, and she would like to go on this trail. And every time she saw a bike coming, she would get really nervous, convincing herself that her horse is going to be afraid. But her horse never once reacted to the bike. She always reacted to the person getting nervous about the bike, right? So once we got the person to distract herself, she actually would just start singing. Actually, it was really amazing and sweet. And she would just start singing every time she saw a bike coming to distract herself from the scary feeling of seeing a bike coming. And the horse never spooked at the bike after that because it wasn't really about the bike. It was about the person anticipating the spook at the bike. And so, that was a really powerful one when we were able to piece that apart and realize that, the person's fear was actually sort of irrational there. And, that fear was based on a prior horse that she'd had that really genuinely was afraid of bikes. And so that fear at one point in her life was very protective. It was no longer serving her here. It was holding her back. It was keeping her in fight or flight during her entire trail ride on a trail that she really enjoyed riding on that also happened to be very popular by bikers. And so this is something that is, I think, a really important tool to be able to pull apart for yourself. Is this a legitimate fear, or is this something that is my brain telling me this is scary and it's actually not, and I'm going to be okay? Another really common example is the first canter. People are terrified to canter, and I get it. Like, I also sometimes feel nervous to canter, especially on a bigger or more powerful or younger or more unpredictable horse. I totally get that, especially postpartum. Oh my gosh, like coming back postpartum, my body feels so different. It's hard for me to even trust my own instincts a lot of times where I'm kind of peeling apart like, is this actually something that's outside of the scope of what I'm capable of at this point? Or is this just something that my body is like irrationally trying to protect me from that I'm totally capable of? And I struggle with this on a regular basis, but I see this a lot with my students where they're very nervous to canter. And there's nothing about the canter itself that is dangerous, right? The fear is that it's unpredictable and it's unexpected and they've never done it before, so they don't know what it's going to feel like. And sometimes the best answer is just to say, we're cantering today and we're just going to do it. And I'm going to be here with you. I'm going to keep you on the lunge line. And it's going to be great. And we're going to have a lot of fun. And sometimes the answer is to back off and say, we don't need to canter yet. We can wait a little while. So, I think that this is something that our sport gets backwards a lot, that a lot of times in this industry, it's just about ride through the fear and just push through it. But I think what that does is it actually makes us less sensitive to our internal barometer. It makes us less attuned to our own instincts and whether or not we're actually putting ourselves in danger. And I think that what is actually needed is that we need to be able to slow down and take a step back and think, is this actually something that is dangerous? Or And if this is something that's dangerous, is this inside the scope of my skill set and abilities at this time? And if the answer to those is no, then you are kind of good to go and you can go do the thing. And if the answer is yes, then maybe it is a good idea to take a step back and find a trainer or whatever else. So here's a tool that I like to use to help reset myself. Yeah, I have two here. I'm going to do the first one is breathing with my horse's hoofbeats. So I'll breathe in for 4 steps, out for 6 or 8 steps, whatever amount of breath I have in me. And I'll repeat that 4 to 10 times until I feel like I am relaxed enough and back in my logical thinking brain to be able to make a decision. So, what this does effectively is it shuts off your fight or flight instinct in your lizard brain and puts you back into the thinking part of your brain. So, if you do this, you will have an easier time piecing apart if this is actually something that is truly dangerous, or if it's something your brain is telling you dangerous, but you're totally capable of, right? And so that's my first one, and it is totally top secret. No one has to even ever know that you're doing it. You can do it just while you're warming up or while you're riding, and it's like just between you and your horse. Nobody else has to know. And the coolest thing about this is, without fail, every time I've asked a student to do this, the horse also relaxes, which is amazing. And so if we can do this and relax our own brains and come back to a more logical place and our horse relaxes, like what magic is that, you know? And it only takes a few seconds. So I highly recommend it. Don't discount it until you've tried it. It's really, it's gonna amaze you for sure. And then the second one is just to, this also feels so silly, like such a simple thing, but I swear it works. And it's to notice the bottoms of your feet in your boots and notice your toes in your socks and notice if one foot is hotter or colder or more sweaty or itchy, or if your socks are bunched up. Just with as much detail as you possibly can, notice your feet. Your feet are something that once we put our socks and boots on and we get going, we often don't think about our feet very much during the day unless they're achy or painful. But generally, like, we're not noticing like the quality of how our feet feel in our boots. But as soon as you do that, I again, without fail, every time I've had a student do that, their leg softens, they become heavier in their saddle, they relax into the movement, and then they're back in their thinking brain and they're not in fight or flight anymore. So those are my two little tricks up my sleeve. And again, both are totally top secret. You don't have to tell anyone you're doing them if you're worried about it, because there is something really oddly like shameful and embarrassing about fear in this sport. So let's destigmatize that. Let's talk about it, but let's also be rational about it and figure out, is this actually something that's dangerous that I need to protect myself from? Or is this something that I can, you're okay. He's scared of the tripod. You silly goofy pony. Or is this something that I can ride through? And that's your decision that you get to make, and no one else gets to make that for you. So just want to empower you and give you those tools. You are the silliest pony. Now you're afraid of my hat? You goofball. All right, we're gonna take you home. And that is that for now. Make sure to hug your horse for me and stay tuned for the next video.